It's Jonathan with TriFitRacing.com. This year I'm riding the 2011 Trek Gary Fisher Collection Superfly 100. Upgraded from the Trek fuel. I've been getting a couple of questions about how I've set up the bike and what works for me. So I'm just going to give you a quick run through. Again, this is what works for me, my riding. I'm Northern Virginia, so I'm doing East Coast riding, twisty single track, through the woods, rolling a hill, lots of roots and rocks. But what works for me. So keep that in mind, and certainly got to make some adjustments from that point. One of the first things I did was upgrade to the X-Lite wheels from the original Rhythm wheels. There was nothing wrong with them, but I wanted to make sure I was running as light and rigid as possible, especially with the 2.9er. Certainly being my first, I was a little concerned about getting those larger tires up and moving. In the rear, I kept the original tire that came with it, the 29er 3. It's definitely a lower tread. It's a super fast tire, running about 28 psi in a tubeless setup. It slips a little bit if I get too aggressive on the climb, but nothing a little adjustment in the saddle can't take care of. I'm definitely very pleased and will continue to run it, especially for its weight and its durability. The front tire, the original was a little bit larger and heavier than I needed. I didn't have any problems with it. I used it a few rides, but my comfort zone was with the tires I'd been running previous, so I wanted to go ahead and get those back on there. So these are the 2.9er 2s. I had them on my fuel in the front and rear, but because the rear I've been real pleased with, I only swapped it out on the front. So far, it's dead on. It's what works for me. Might not work for everybody, but I'm super happy with them. Outside of that, drivetrain-wise, original 3x10, haven't made any adjustments there. I did have an opportunity to upgrade the Evo saddle to the RXL, so I took advantage of that. It's just a little bit lighter. It's a super comfortable saddle. Certainly saddles are a very personal item. It's a matter of, on some of my other bikes, once I find one, it's hard to give up, even when you move from bike to bike. Sometimes I bring it with me. Depending upon what I'm racing, if I'm doing short course or Xterras, I just go with a flat kit and a water bottle, versus if I'm doing a longer full day ride, epic 100-miler, I'm definitely using a camo pack. So with that, I'm weighing in about 188 pounds. So I dialed the suspension in right around 200 pound with the sag. For me, what I'm finding is I like about 160 in the rear, so I pump it to about 170, knowing when I unthread it, it's going to blow off. It should net out about 160. Front, I do the same trick. I pump it into about 100, knowing I'm going to end up right around 90. I started with the rebound dead center. Started with the Trek recommendation. You'll find that on their website under bike manuals. What I did is I used that as my starting point, and for me, I needed to slow it down a little bit. I was getting a little bit of a pogo stick in the rear end, so 1 or 2 clicks off from dead center. The front, I walk that balance between it being fast enough that it tracks, but slow enough that it's a little bit more of a plush ride for me. I'm not a super strong descender, so I wanted to get the suspension working to absorb as much as possible and hopefully improve my comfort and my performance. So again, I think I'm 1 click off of center on the front. Beyond that, the only other thing I did down low is I run the Sunto, the triathlete setup, so it has the bike pod and the foot pod. They recommend that the bike pod go on the front. For me, I put it here on the rear chainstay. It's a little bit easier to zip tie on, and then that's where I keep it on my road bikes. That way if I'm in a trainer and the rear tire is spinning, I still get my speed and my calculation versus the front tire just being sitting there on the ground. After that, the front end. Inverted the stem, lowered it a couple of spacers. I want to be kind of low and a little more aggressive on the front end, trying to keep that front tire planted when I'm taking advantage of my strength, which is the climbing. Had the original Bonchero foam grips. I ran with those for maybe a few weeks. I swapped them out for something a little bit softer. 1 was durability, and then 2 was when I was doing the longer rides. Again, it was just a comfort thing. Shifters, everything is the same there. The bar width. Originally it was 28 inches. I tried to stick with it as long as possible, working with the guys, spokes, etc. They helped me make some of the adjustments. They wanted me to try to live it out at the 28 inches to offset that larger tire. I stuck with it. I clipped a few trees, hit the pinky finger, and I wasn't sure. I was very hesitant, but ultimately we cut it down to 27 inches, took a ½ inch off each side. For me, it was the best thing I had done. And maybe it was a mental thing. I just was worried about it being a wide bar. In actuality, it wasn't, especially compared to, say, my shoulder width. But the 27, I don't think about it. I haven't clipped a bar in, haven't hit a tree. It was the right adjustment for me. Beyond that, it's kind of rolling stock. Certainly, if you got any questions, again, this is what works for me, my riding style. Find me at tryfitracing.com and let me know what you think.